Hey y'all, it is Mary Hyatt, and I am so excited you're here for this month's topic, which is all about self-sabotage. Now, let me just tell you that everyone has self-sabotaging behaviors, but why? Maybe it's because we're lazy and we lack discipline and willpower? Well, I'm going to argue that that is not the reason at all. This month, we are going to explore the unconscious reasons why we find ourselves in procrastination and destructive patterns. And here's a hint. There's a really good reason why you do what you do. Okay, let's jump into it.
Welcome to the Living Fully Alive podcast with Mary Hyatt, here to help you find your authentic voice, learn how to love yourself, and embrace your life. And now, your host, life and mindset coach, body love advocate, and doTERRA Presidential Diamond, Mary Hyatt.
Hey everybody, it is Mary, and look who I am sitting with on screen, I should say, with, hey girl.
Hi, how fun is this seeing each other on Zoom when we're right down the road from each other?
I know. So for those of you who are not watching the actual video, it is my old part-time co-host, Lindsley Brooks. She is in the house, partner in crime, BFF. And we're literally, after this gets done, we're going to go get drinks because we are just down the street from each other. But I now do camera, and I was like, I don't know how to film us both while we're recording this. So hence she's in her living room. I'm here in my office.
It works great.
It's great. I'm so excited because I know we're going to have a powerful conversation today. This is our third episode in our self-sabotage series. And girl, I got to tell you, the last two episodes have been so good. Last week I had Daniel Mangina on, who is just a delight. So he's like totally up our alley. He is, he's British, but he's been to 4 advanced trainings with Dr. Joe. And he's a Kundalini yoga fanatic. So we had such an enlightened sort of next level conversation about this concept of microshifting and how that tool can help to end self-sabotage. And basically, like, I think it was really liberating for everybody in recognizing that they didn't have to make these giant leaps that were really scary to achieve their goals, but they could baby step their way into growth, into success. So y'all, go check out that episode. It's called The Power of Microshifting to End Self-Sabotage. So that was last week. And then the week before, I did a solo episode. That was kind of our foundational first episode where I got into the real reason you self-sabotage. And it's not because we're lazy. It's not because we simply want to destroy our lives, but it's actually our subconscious's best way of trying to keep us safe. And that oftentimes when we go through life, saying that we want a better relationship or more money or a healthier body, if our subconscious, which is 95% of the thoughts that we're thinking, if that part of our brain does not agree or feels threatened, or if it somehow doesn't feel safe to the subconscious, it will sabotage our best efforts to keep us safe. And so I think that if you're just kind of getting into this whole idea of what is self-sabotage, go listen to that episode, the first episode, the real reason you self-sabotage, because that will lay the groundwork for Lindsley and I's conversation we're going to have today and just give you a better understanding of what it is in general. But Lindsley, first of all, it's really good to have you back on the show. I got to say.
I know. I miss being with you on here. And I always love our conversation. So it's always fun to chat with you.
I know. Well, you and I are the queens of having awesome conversations over drinks, which is why I was like, we've got to have inside of each month, one episode that's devoted to me and one of my dear friends having a candid conversation, because it's like light bulb moments, even though it's casual and, we're drinking and whatever else. So I want to hop straight into this because I feel like we're going to just have a lot of fun with this topic. So I was talking to Daniel last week, and he was talking about microshifting, right? Like these little baby steps that we can take. And I said, the best thing about this concept of these micro shifts, little step by little step by little step, creates a lot of momentum in the pursuit of your goals. And it helps you build trust with yourself. But one of the things that I brought up in that conversation that I want to explore with you is this idea of self-integrity. And
Mm.
that when we keep our word to ourselves and do these little baby steps, the more often we do those things, the more that it builds inside of ourselves trust with our own word. Like, I do what I say I'm going to do. And I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
love this concept of self-integrity. And I just kind of started to think about how this really is such a powerful antidote to self-sabotage when you can build integrity with yourself little
Mm-hmm.
by little, like little choices every day. So
Mm-hmm.
I know that you've been kind of geeking out about this topic
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
recently. So tell me what you've been learning.
Well, I love this because part of my own journey has been, because I think self integrity is, like you were saying, it's so connected to self worth. And if
Yeah.
you have that piece where you're kind of, what I say, like all the little things that we break promises with ourselves about, like if I say I'm going to work out today but I don't, or if I'm going to stop talking to that dude and I do, or like
Yeah.
if I say I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and go run, whatever it is there's no like good or bad connected to these things. But when we start like associating with it and then hearing ourselves break promises with ourselves, there is this almost like eroding at the
Yes.
foundation of self-worth. And so even like the word integrity is so fascinating to me, because I think in the English language, like the way we use it, we almost put this like moral judgment connected to it. There's almost like a
Totally.
strange, but really the word itself, like when you look up the word integrity, it actually just means intact. So
Ooh.
so to be in integrity is to be one thing. It's to be like, it's almost like a wholeness of whatever the compartment, what all the parts of something is. It's that it's becoming that one thing, and which simply means to be intact. So to be in integrity is to be one thing, whole and undivided.
Oh,
So
wow.
think about that. When
I
you are, yeah, go,
no,
go.
go.
Well, I was just going to say, it's like when you experience that level of unity, it's almost like unity within ourselves, because we're talking about self integrity.
Right.
It really is like a mind, body, heart, soul wholeness, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like there is like almost a flow or some sort of like you're on an alignment or some sort of mission, right? and
Mhm.
and then you start realizing, oh my gosh, when I'm not in a place of integrity with myself, I am in like disharmony or divided, right? There's a sense of
Ooh.
being divided within myself, which I think creates a lot of the suffering that we experience, or that level of self-worth or self-esteem or confidence or whatever. That's kind of what starts creating some of that divided nature and almost kind of the disharmony in our lives. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're blowing my mind right now because you said that so powerfully and succinctly. I'm like, where did you just pull that out from? So good.
I've been studying, I know, literally, I've been like studying this because I started noticing that I was like, I am I'm like eroding at my own sense of
Yeah.
self-worth and confidence. And then that makes me tolerate things and put up with stuff that I shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And it's only because my self-esteem has been dinged, and I'm only doing it to myself, you
Yeah, because if
know?
you think about like when you don't follow through with your word to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it erodes trust. So when I say like I'm going to do this thing, whatever it is, your brain basically says like, well, we know that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
She's never going to do it. She's not the kind of person that actually does it. And so there's no, like you said, there's no sense of confidence in your own
Mm-mm.
sense of like showing up for yourself when that integrity gets broken again and again and again. And I think this is a really fascinating concept because when we think about integrity, like you said, we think of it from a moral standpoint, you're a good person or you're not, if you have integrity or you don't. But we usually only think of it as it relates to integrity towards other people. So like I have integrity in the workplace. I have integrity with my significant other. Like it's always about how we show up oftentimes for others. And I think it's really rare to think about integrity, that intact self in relationship with ourself, number one. So when we think about self-sabotage too, it's like that is eroding that trust. When we say again, hey, I want to do something, and then we come in and we sabotage our best efforts at it for a various many reasons, a lot of psychological PTSD and trauma and all the things. Still though, there's that subconscious conversation that's like, I don't trust myself to do anything that I say that I'm going to do. So then all of a sudden my behaviors are, I'm like abusing myself. I'm against myself. And that's why when I think about self-sabotage, oftentimes we think about sabotage as like, I'm going to sabotage my life and I'm going to blow up my life. But again, here, that word self-sabotage, self-integrity. We're doing this to ourselves in relationship with ourselves. And the one that we're punishing the most is ourselves.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just, what you're saying is so powerful because the self-sabotage piece, I almost believe that like, if we're looking at this from a higher perspective, then there's some aspect of the self-sabotage that is actually information that we're not in integrity with ourselves. So it's almost like some sort of warning sign that there is something that we are not being intact with, like we're out of alignment. Do you see what I'm saying? It's almost like we're acting in a way that does not feel right to ourselves at the deepest level. And so then all of a sudden we start doing things out of response to not being in integrity with ourselves on a very subconscious level, right? We might start doing things that are not in alignment with our deepest truths about what our soul wants or who we say we are. And then we start snapping at somebody we love, or we start, we stop working out because all of a sudden, like your true self probably doesn't want to force yourself to get up at 5 a.m. You know what I mean? There's like all these pieces that I'm wondering, I don't know, I'd love to know your thoughts, but I'm almost like wondering if self-sabotage is that connection.
Well, I was going to say, it's actually changes it from, okay, having judgment or shame around, like I'm a bad person, to this is an invitation to look at an area that's out of alignment in your life. And I want to get tangible with this because so far we're using these words and I want to like make it super practical. So I'll give an example of how this is showing up for me right now. And then, I want to hear some of yours because I know we were just talking about this the other night. So for me, so I've started this new workout program, right? And I am killing it. I'm on week, I think week number 6. Okay. It's a 9-week program. And I traditionally have been horrible at follow through. Like I always say, don't get me to commit to anything. I hate committing to things. I like variety. I like changing things up. So for me to like show up and do already 6 weeks is kind of a big deal. Like I've never done like a workout program that long before. And so the point of the whole program, I mean, of course you can lose weight, whatever, but I'm like trying to get really like strong and fit and toned. And I think when I hit my birthday this year, I was like, and Corona, I was like, I have got to double down on my health. Like I want to take care of my health. I want to feel vibrant. I want to feel radiant. I want to feel amazing. And so I've been doing all these things this year to kind of contribute to that feeling of vibrancy. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this workout plan. It's going to push me. It's going to be hard, whatever. Well, I have been sabotaging all of my efforts by eating like crap. And I mean, like, not just like, oh, believe me, I mean, I practice intuitive eating. So there's no good foods. There's no bad foods in intuitive eating. You really like trust the wisdom of your body through gentle nutrition. But I'm like middle finger up, like eating things that I would never eat normally, drinking way more than I would drink normally, like in a direct response to this fear underneath that says you can't be too healthy because then you won't be relatable to people. And if you're not relatable, like if you're too happy, if you're too healthy, if it gets too good, then people will judge you, and then they will abandon you. And then I'll be abandoned. I'll be left, right? So it hits on that core wound. And so even though my conscious mind is saying, I want a healthier body, I want to feel vibrant, I want to feel radiant, that fear underneath is so much stronger than the desire to be vibrant, that I'm coming in and sabotaging. Now I'm aware of it. But before I was like I've literally gained almost 10 pounds in 2 months.
Mm-hmm,
Like,
mm-hmm.
it doesn't make any sense, like, with what I'm doing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm literally saying subconsciously, it's not safe to be healthy. It's not
Yeah.
safe to be vibrant. And so for me, looking at this of like, I am out of integrity. Like I said, I'm going to do this thing. I said, I'm going to show up in this way. And I'm not. Like every day I make a meal plan and say, here's what I'm eating for the day. And again, it's no good food or bad food. It's just so that I keep track of what I'm eating and I eat to when I'm full. I'm basically like, I'll sit down in a small way and I'll sit down and say, all right, I'm going to check in with myself in this meal. And I really want to practice conscious eating, mindful eating, and stop when I'm full. And I'll deliberately go beyond my fullness level, like significantly, to where I'm like in pain because I'm so full. Even though I just said at the beginning of the dinner, like, okay, we're going to put our fork down between each bite. We're going to eat undistracted, all the kind of like typical intuitive eating, conscious mindfulness practices. And I'm not doing it. And I'm going like, I'm like in that zone of rebellion now. And it's fascinating to watch. Like if I observe myself without judgment, I'm like, oh my gosh, not only am I breaking integrity, but it's pointing me to, again, it's like if I look at the sabotage as an invitation of what's out of alignment, there's a part of me that does not feel safe being vibrant. Thus
Yeah.
the sabotage.
And, and that is, I mean, isn't that such a paradigm shift that you could actually use the information instead of shaming yourself for not sticking to an eating plan or not doing it right? You could actually say, what is the more truer statement about what's going on? And where am I not intact with my personal truth about myself? And so it's like what you're saying is that you have, the real truth was you were afraid that you'd be abandoned. And when you can admit that, then all of a sudden you get back into integrity with yourself because you're acknowledging the truth about what's really going on.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, oh my gosh, then you can wake back up to almost like a version of a sleepwalking, right?
Yeah.
You can like wake back up to, okay, that's what's going on. And then I guarantee you the workout and the eating, and we're just using that as an example, right? It's like the workout and the eating all of a sudden just falls back in line because you got back into alignment and into integrity with yourself about maybe the blind spots or the shadowy parts or the parts that we don't want to look at.
Right.
But when we live divided, right? When we live divided from our own self, then of course it's going to start manifesting in our lives, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of like the end result is the manifestation. Like, is the weight gain, is the blowing up of a relationship, is the quitting of the job, whatever it might be. Like that's the manifestation. But there was a trigger way before that ever even showed up. I mean, it's like the manifestation is after it's done, it's over, right? So what's beautiful is to trace it back and go, oh my gosh, like this was at play all along. Like what part of myself needs some attention, needs some loving, needs some compassion, some, for me, it was like, okay, I need to go in and do some brain spotting here. I need to do some different forms of kind of trauma meditation to help me work through that fear of abandonment. And then I can address what the real issue is versus going, like you said, oh, I got to get more strict on my eating plan, or I got to double down and try to be, more controlling. It's like, no, that's never the answer. Then you sabotage in a bigger way. Then you go on like the bender, it's like the restriction and the binge. Whereas a gentler way, and I think this is what you and I are all about, is like, okay, so I had a moment of overeating. Let's take a look at that with love and kindness. Like what was really going on there? Like what was the anxiety below the surface that I was trying to, stuff down? What was the emotion I was trying to avoid? And all of a sudden, these ways that we're breaking integrity actually are an invitation to rebuild integrity. Pretty cool.
Well, and I just thought about this too, when you're saying it. It's almost like there's some sort of like, how do we actually get out like integrity with ourselves is also based on like our cultural norms are, and like the social standards of how we think and how we're supposed to act. And then, do you know what I mean? Like there's almost like this, like there are explicit social rules, like, you know, you stop at a traffic light and you stop at a stop sign and you wear a certain thing to work or a restaurant. But then there's like this implicit type of social norms about like the things that make you feel approval or make you feel liked. And, you know, it's like how we all want to fit in. I mean, we're like born and bred to think like this is how we can survive in life, as if we're, you know, whatever those. So it's almost like if we start living in accordance to the social norms or the things that give us approval or the things that we think we're supposed to do, but it's not true to who we really are. Yeah. Literally, that's when we start getting divided against ourselves too. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. Well, it's just, it's living on somebody else's expectation of what they want. Or like, even like, we'll take the South, for example, because we're here in Nashville. It's like, there's so many unspoken rules of how you're supposed to conduct yourself, ways of behavior, societal pleasantries that are like, you know, especially for women, saying no is something that is not encouraged. You are very much encouraged to say yes and go against that gut knowing, that true, like, you know, self that says, I cannot put another thing on my plate. I simply can't overcommit. And yet we end up saying yes, because that's the quote unquote right thing to do as a good Southern woman, is to say yes.
Or a woman in general. And a woman in general.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Like you ignore yourself so that, and again, this goes back to when we talked last month about the core wounds, so that we don't put ourselves in risk of abandonment, rejection, or betrayal, which are the three most common core wounds. So rejection is a big piece of this. It's like, if I want to be liked and accepted, then I kind of have to go along with what everybody else is doing. And this shows up all the time. Like sabotage can show up in a way that is so sneaky. It's like, for example, if you say, okay, you know, I'm going to take the next 3 days off of drinking. I just like need a break, for example. And then your friends invite you to dinner and they're all drinking. It's not like anybody's saying you have to drink. It's just partly habitual and autonomic for you to just go into, oh yeah, when we get together, we drink. But again, it's like, well, this is what we do to be accepted and loved inside of the circle, that I'd rather just go ahead and drink, even though I said I told myself I wasn't going to drink for 3 days. It's just easier to go ahead and have the drink, so I don't have to explain myself. It's like, how often are we doing that, of just breaking those little things so that we don't have to engage in conflict in some way, form, or fashion, right? Like that conflict avoidant piece, I think, is probably happening a lot. I'm like, I need to examine that in myself.
Yeah.
Can I ask for a vulnerability time with Lindsley?
Example?
Yeah.
A what?
Yeah, I said a vulnerability time with Lindsley.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. No, totally. In fact, I was just sitting here thinking, I was like, welcome to my dating life. No, but it's true. Like I actually there was a situation about a year or so ago, and it was like that moment where he was asking if I would be willing to like date other people. Like, would I date him as well as us dating others? Yeah. And I did really enjoy my time with him, and I didn't necessarily want it to be over. And I also didn't really, but I didn't want to have multiple things going on. I wanted to have more of a monogamous relationship, or whatever you would call that, with him. But I knew that if I said no, that he'd go away, right? That was the risk. That's always the risk, like we were saying. So I actually remember thinking, like, I may actually be able to do this intellectually. I'm smart enough. I know how to take care of myself emotionally if I got jealous or if I got triggered. Like I actually saw how there was a world that I could create, where I could create this scenario with him and be able to. But then I sat with myself and I thought, I have to say no, not because of a moral issue, not because it's bad or because dating other people is wrong for me or anything like that. It wasn't good for me. I wouldn't be in a place of my truth. And my truth is that my heart wanted a serious monogamous relationship. My heart wants to be in a relationship with somebody that it is just about me and him, right? So if that's my core truth, if I say no, or if I should say, if I say yes to him, then I am actually not in a place of integrity with myself, and it would mess me up in the head, right? And I'd be constantly in battle with myself and riding the roller coaster of, it's great when we're together, but every time we leave each other, I'm in the fetal position and my stomach's anxious and I'm sick to my stomach and I'm worrying about it. It's like, no, I can't do that to myself.
Yeah.
So I had to say no, even though I wanted to keep them. And oh my gosh, it was so hard. But you know what's so interesting, and you and I have unpacked this, but I started realizing, oh my gosh, I chose me in that moment. I literally chose me, and I didn't abandon myself in that moment.
Yeah.
And I can't even tell you the sweetness that comes from that. And you talk about boosting your self-esteem and your self-worth and your confidence. All of a sudden you're making hard decisions that like up front, it's really difficult to make that decision or to say no to something like not eating the sugar or not having the drink, but you're saying yes to the long term of what you want to, that has to do with your truth. And that is integrity to me. Like that right there is getting to create, you stop eroding at the foundation and you're building a solid foundation, right, of that sense of self. So I don't know. It's been a journey. I think that's why I'm so passionate about it, because who knew self-integrity was such a hot topic when in the dating life, the dating world. But
well, it's like, what do they say? How you do one thing is how you do all things. Yeah. And so I think that's what's so cool about this concept is once you start noticing it in one area, you start seeing it in other areas. Like this is something that's so silly and so profound the other day that I noticed in myself. So I take these supplements and they're packaged for like a half dose. So you take like half the dose in the morning and half the dose at night. Okay. And so I like religious clockwork. I mean, you know me, I'm like all about my supplements and everything. I take these supplements at night. So I take half the dose at night. Well, as I started unpacking this idea that I've been out of integrity with myself and like sabotaging in the slightest small ways, I started scanning my life to notice where am I like, micro sabotaging. And it was, I am not taking the full dose of the supplements. Now, for me, that was so much of a external picture of like how much good I'll allow in my life. I'll let some good because I value health. So I'll let half the good, but I won't actually let myself feel great. I won't let myself feel fully vibrant by taking the other half of these supplements, which would create the whole dose. I'll just do half. Now I never made that choice consciously, right? I was never like, I'm not going to take these in the morning. It was like, I just haven't. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have been denying myself literal nourishment on the most basic level because of this fear of not letting it get too good. And again, that goes back to beliefs that I have. If it's too good, people will abandon me. But we start noticing like all these little micro ways that we are denying ourselves, that we are leaving ourselves, that we are oftentimes abusing ourselves. And I think that what's so amazing about creating this foundation of self-integrity is that what I'm doing now, I don't know if you do this yourself, but I let my future self be the one who's making those choices. So my past self is the one who's really afraid of abandonment and rejection and not being enough and all like that. That's old programming. That's old stories. So if left to her devices in her fear, she's going to sabotage because she wants safety more than anything in the world. But if I can let my future self saying, okay, like how can I babysit my way into feeling like it's okay if there's goodness in my life or greatness in my life. So like, for example, with the supplements, a micro thing that I'm doing to create integrity with myself and to combat self-sabotage and to let my future self decide, this one who is stepping into her vibrancy and radiance, she is now like a spiritual practice for me is taking my supplements, the other half dose in the morning. And like that, just showing up for myself. I've done it for like 4 mornings in a row now. And every time it's now that I'm aware of it, it's a mental choice. Like I'll look at those supplements and my old self is saying, nope, don't take those. And I'm like, whew, you can do this. And like, how silly, but it's like, you can do this. Like I can take the supplements. I can be well. I can be healthy. And it's like, I said I was going to do it. And so like, let my future self who is intact and wholeness and integrity with herself, like she's not in any drama about it. She's just going to take the supplements because it's in alignment with who she wants to be, or sorry, who she is. So that's been like a little thing that I've been visualizing is, okay, what is my future self doing? And how can I like be in integrity with her more than I am this old programming, old story that's just stuck in fear? It's kind of cool.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That's so inspiring because you're right. It is a risk. I mean, when you actually say like, I'm going to choose me, and like for you saying like my health and my nourishment, it's like when you really do take a stand for something and it's in the place of truth, it really does require that sense of, you're risking. I mean, you're putting yourself out there in a different way. And there's a level of responsibility of like, oh my gosh, if I saying, and then I really have to own this. And then when you get off course, because of course you will, that is life. When you start using that information is just, okay, where am I wonky? Where is my foundation been out of alignment? And I think it's probably pretty helpful to even think about what are the warning signs that you're out of integrity?
Yeah.
Because if I know for me emotionally, I'm so curious to know what this is for you, but like emotionally, like I get really grumpy. I can be really sad. I can get depressed. I can get like super anxious. I can even go a little numb sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like physically, I might like start getting like kind of, I don't know, sick. My immune system I've noticed has gotten goofy before. And, I just thought about this too. You and I love kinesiology and things. I'm thinking about muscle testing, how like, when I am speaking my truth, my muscles go strong. When I'm not in integrity with myself, or I'm speaking something about me that is not true, what happens? My muscles go weak.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know, just some indicators about just like how do I know when something I'm saying one thing, but actually my truth is another.
Yeah.
I may not even know it to myself yet, but my body and my life is speaking it to me.
Well, 100%. And I think it's helpful to start where it feels really obvious. Like everyone listening, I know there is an area where you've been saying one thing and doing something else. So it's like starting there. Like what we're talking about is we're getting into like the super nuanced version of this because we've been practicing this, we've been studying this. This is something that we didn't just wake up today starting. So I think in some ways we're further along in that journey to catch the little moments, but it's like, I know for me, when I was younger, I lied all the time, things I didn't even need to lie about. I would lie about because I was so deeply afraid that my truth would be rejected that it got into such a habit of like, what is that called? When you lie all the time, what's the like title for that?
Habitual liar.
Yeah. Habitual. Like, like literally like it was like, and it wasn't until my now ex-husband, but when we started dating, he was like, don't lie. Like, you don't need to lie. And I'm like, what? I don't like, I grew up just lying about everything because it was easier. And I didn't have to deal with conflict. There's a lot of benefits, right, to lying, but it got to the point where that was really obvious for me. Like when I started doing this work 15 years ago, I was like, dang, like I am pretending to be somebody else and that is not who I am. So that was really obvious. So I think it's helpful to start where you like, just having that sobering honesty with yourself in kindness and compassion. Again, it's like you have a really good reason for doing you have a really good reason for doing what you do. Like you're not a bad person for lying, even though you grew up and the church told you so, like you're a sinner. It's like, no, there's a reason why I'm lying. It's not because I'm a bad person. It's because I'm underneath of it all scared to death that I'm going to be rejected and ultimately abandoned. So it's like, if we can bring in some compassion as we look at ourselves and go, where am I out of alignment? Where am I saying things and not doing them? Where my word does not match up with my actions. that's a good place to
Yes.
start, is that honesty. But you know what this is bringing to mind is the 4 agreements. And I don't know which one it is out of the 4. You might know better than me, but the be impeccable with your word.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it goes back to the basics of like that agreement that I make with myself. And I really like have gotten to this point where I would say I'm definitely not perfect, but I've gotten a lot better at like I don't let anything come out of my mouth now that isn't true, that isn't real, that isn't like my truth. And that's kind of an agreement that I've made with myself, is like I'm going to be impeccable with my word. And if I don't know the answer yet, or if I don't want to commit to something yet, then I don't do that. Like I just buy myself some more time or wait, because I would rather be in alignment than ease the discomfort of somebody else or on their timeline or avoid conflict or whatever. It's like I've practiced that muscle a lot of just going, don't say it if you don't mean it.
Mhm. I know. Isn't that the truth? Just to even say, I'll get back to you, or I don't know. And
Yeah.
then sitting in the discomfort of that awkward moment where the pleaser in me
Yes.
wants to literally make them like feel so much better. And it's like, I'm the one that would be going over the top and double duty, you know?
Totally.
And it makes me also think, be impeccable with your word. Like, have you ever thought about like, if even basic things like you're always running late to an appointment or going to work, or like you can't seem to like follow through on calling somebody back, and we beat ourselves up, but we're not being impeccable with our word, which is, I actually don't like that person and I don't want to call them back, or I hate my job, that's why I'm late to work all the time.
Right.
Like the impeccable with your word is almost like not making promises or even committing to something, or actually even like taking action on something
Yeah.
that really and truly is not your truth. And
Mm.
I'll never forget, I used to be a part of a therapeutic group, and one of our slogans was, a broken promise is a cry for help. And
Wow.
so like if I say I'm going to call you but I don't, it really may have nothing to do with you as much as it has to do with what's going on in my life that's creating so much either chaos or drama, that I had mental fogginess and I forgot, and
Right.
or it's that I don't really want to talk to, but I said I would, and I wasn't impeccable with what I was saying. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
So it's like a red flag, you know?
Totally. Well, I just think about like the whole idea of procrastination being one of the like top ways that people self-sabotage is,
Mm-hmm.
to me, people are not procrastinators because it's a part of their genetic DNA and their identity. Because people say, I'm just a procrastinator. It's like, no, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually not a
Yeah.
personality trait. That is a coping mechanism. And the idea of procrastination to me is I am avoiding something. And it's like, you're not lazy. It's not that you can't get your shit together. It's like, what are you avoiding? Is it a feeling? Is it a commitment? Is it a person? Is it, it's like there's so many things that we do to procrastinate. Like yesterday. So I'll give you a little insight. So I am speaking for I know you know who this is, but Chris Carr. It is
Yeah.
her. She's a big person in the health and wellness industry. And she has a mastermind group of women who earn like 7-8 figure incomes, right? So she's asked me to come speak this Friday about financial freedom and redefining success as you start getting into these higher income brackets. So I'm like, this is great. I was like super pumped about it, super excited. And so I was meant to send her the agenda yesterday. When I tell you, I could not make myself get into it until like 2 o'clock. I did everything else I could do, I could think of, to procrastinate and to avoid doing this. And when I sat down, I actually texted you yesterday and I was like, are you around? Because I was having a full-fledged total imposter syndrome come apart
Yeah.
moment, panic, like internal nervous system panic of like, who am I to be doing this? These
Mm-hmm.
women are so successful. What could I say that would even help for them? And I realized that my procrastination, because I was like, at first I was like, just get it together, just like sit down and make yourself do this. And it was like, no, that procrastination is actually a red flag that is like
Mm-hmm.
saying, pay attention. There is something under the surface that needs some attending to. And I did. I
Mm-hmm.
was able to like go talk to myself, to that part of myself that was afraid, sort of build up that confidence. And it was like, okay, we're going to sit down and we are going to do this right now. You said you were going to turn this in. You've agreed to it. And now we need to practice following through with our word. And it was kind of an all level experience of self-sabotaging through procrastination, pausing to notice I was in that pattern, slowing down, meeting myself with observation and kindness and compassion, tending to the need, to the emotion, to the wounding, to the fear, and then inviting in discipline, inviting in, we're going to sit down and we're going to finish this. And I did. I feel really good about it. I'm stoked. I'm like ready to go. It's going to be an amazing time with them. But like, that's just literally just happened to me yesterday.
I love that. Well, you got back intact with yourself.
Yes.
And I swear to you, it's like people, I know we live this every day, but when you can do that little cycle that you just did and do it and work it out like a muscle, where you've like built in that automatic process of like reading your life and observing things with loving compassion, I swear you can actually have an entire life that when it is fully intact, when your mind, body, spirit, soul, and heart are in an alignment and you're in a place of integrity, like your life can be fun. Like you can actually enjoy. I mean, think about it. When you're living a divided life, that is so much anxiety. Like we've been kind of painting this picture of like so much anxiety and so much disharmony. And then when all of a sudden you're living in your truth, is it not like the most?
It's so freeing.
Yeah, it's so freeing.
Yeah, you don't have to hide.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I love my friends. I love my house. I sleep good at night. I wake up in the morning feeling inspired by what I do because it feels like I'm doing work that's my truth. Those kinds of things. It's like, that is truly the secret to, I think, probably living your best life is living a life of self-integrity.
Amen, girl. All right. That's it. Done. Thank you. That is the perfect sentence to end on. But truly, I'm going to end it there because there's nothing more that needs to be said than that.
I'm glad that my self-integrity loves your self-integrity.
I was going to say, I'm glad my truest self loves your truest self.
My true self loves your true self.
Hey, will your true self go hang out and have a drink with me in a few minutes?
Yes, I would love to.
Y'all, thank you for just being in on this conversation. Lindsley, thank you for, you like really dropped some bombs today. I got to say, get it, girl. What you can't see if you're listening to the podcast audio is Lindsley dancing.
My Heisman dance, my football touchdown dance. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow. Good football analogy there. I was like, what? I know. Y'all, I'm excited that we've got one more episode in our series of self-sabotage. So next week I will be with you solo to kind of bring everything together and then send you off before our next month. So if you haven't already subscribed, make sure to share this episode, tag Lindsley and I on Instagram or Facebook. Let us know what just was a total takeaway for you. What was like a nugget of truth, an aha moment. Share it on your story, tag us, let us know. Cause it's always like nice to hear the feedback and just to be like, oh, that was what landed for her. So cool. So we love that. Make sure to follow Lindsley if you haven't already. And just remember that the purpose of life is to be grateful, to be great, and to be full. I'll see y'all next week. Bye. Hey y'all, thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you got some amazing nuggets to take home and start implementing into your life. And if you're looking for the show notes and links, head on over to maryhyatt.com/show. And if you loved it, why not bring your girlfriends along this journey of becoming fully alive with you? Just give a quick share of this episode to your social channels and enjoy those debriefing convos with your besties. Thanks again, and I can't wait to connect with you next week.